Hello Fombat, welcome to the recording of feedback for your mock exam. So let's just start with your result. You got 12 out of 46, so 26%. The pass mark was 55, so unfortunately you didn't pass this mock, but I'm sure you'll be able to study this weekend and do well on the final exam. So let's just start with question 1. So question 1 was matching a definition to those. So these are often used at the start of the course after initial assessments. That would be a diagnostic assessment. B, whether a test is assessing other things, that's validity. And C would have been practicality. Okay, and let's just see how you did. So you got a point for diagnostics, but B and C unfortunately were wrong. So I couldn't give you any points for those. Number 2, they were definitions. And let's see how you did on this one. Unfortunately, number 2, you got 0 points. Okay, so you needed to give a definition for objective assessment, so and an example. So 1 point for a definition and 1 point for an example. So an objective assessment would be a test where the answer is right or wrong. There's only one answer, and it's right or wrong. And you could have said something like a multiple choice. You could have said something like a true or false task. Something like that would have been the example. And in your answer, you put, this is a test showing or measuring the objectives of the learner or students. That's not specific enough, and we could say that actually every test is there to measure what the learner is doing, not just objective tests. B was norm reference testing. So that's about where there isn't a fixed pass mark. It's all the results are collated from an exam, and then from there they decide what the pass mark is, what the grades are, for example GCSE. And let's see what you put. You put, this is a check of knowledge showing the criteria to be followed. So no, you would have to mention something about the results are looked at before the pass grade or pass mark is decided. Curriculum alignment, so that's when what's taught on the course is directly related to what's going to be on the exam. So for example, in a BTEC course or even GCSEs, that would be an example. And you had, this is teaching that is based on the curriculum set by the examining body or by the institution. This is teaching based on the curriculum set by the examining body or by the institution. So I didn't give you a point for that because you would have to relate it, because that's something that they need for the exam. So they need, the curriculum is set by the examining body because it's going to be on the exam. Okay? So for homework, just make sure you study the vocabulary again. You've got all the definitions, so just give that some revision, because there will be some terminology on the final exam. Okay? Question number 3 was about concept questions. And you'll be pleased to know that there will be no concept questions on the final exam. We will go back to concept questions, but we'll be doing that after Easter, because I do think concept questions are quite important. So after Easter, we'll take a better look at that, which is why they're not going to be on the final exam. Okay, let's see how you did here. For question number 3, you got 1 out of 6. And let's see how you did in here. So, oops. So 3, what is your academic background in French? What job do you do? Okay, so I think what happened in this Fombat was I wanted you to write concept questions to check the meaning of initial assessment. So for example, is it an assessment that happens at the beginning of the course or at the end of the course? Is it an assessment that happens when somebody's on the course or before somebody gets on the course? Is it an assessment that happens to decide someone's suitability for a course? That kind of thing. Your questions were questions that would be asked at an initial assessment for a French course. So yeah, definitely, you would definitely ask these questions at an initial assessment, but that doesn't check the meaning of the expression initial assessment. Okay, so I said these questions are examples of what you can ask at initial assessment. You need to write concept questions to check the meaning of initial assessment. And then B, you were checking the meaning of bonjour. Now, how many syllables is this word? Unfortunately, that doesn't check meaning, that checks pronunciation. How is it pronounced? Again, it doesn't check the concept, which is meaning. It checks the pronunciation. But you did say, when can it be used? And the answer would be in the morning. And then, of course, that checks that they understand that. So, yeah, good question. When can it be used? Okay, let's move on to question number 4. Question number 4 was about assessment for learning. So give 3 examples of how assessment can be used in the classroom and make 1 reference to your own subject area. So you'd have to talk about 3 examples of assessment in the lessons and mention teaching French. So let's see how you did. You got 2 out of 5 for this. So let's see what you wrote. Formative assessment, this is a check on whether it is measuring what it's meant to measure. So actually no, that definition is incorrect. That's about validity. So is measuring what it's meant to measure, it refers to the validity of an assessment. Here, yeah, I gave you a point for that. So can you remember parts of the lesson? Yeah, I think that's valid. Peer assessment, definitely. Get them to work in pairs. Yeah, good stuff. So I think really what you needed is another example of how you could use assessment in class. Self-assessment, peer assessment, as you said, but also related to teaching French. So be a bit more specific, and then you could have got a couple more points for that. Okay, so let's go on to number 5. Question 5 was about checking instructions. So there were instruction checking questions rather than concept questions. So the idea is that a teacher says, so has everybody got that? Yeah. This is not a good way to check that students understand your instructions. And you had to say, what are 2 things that are bad about it, and 2 different questions that you could ask in a French lesson to check instructions of a French activity. So let's just see how you did on this one. So 2 out of 4, so you had some good reasons, but I think you needed questions. So let's take a look. The word yeah is not an English word. I disagree with you. We say it all the time. So actually it is an English word. It's just very informal and colloquial. Some learners might be ashamed to figure out if they haven't understood. Definitely. Others might just follow the majority and accept they have understood. Yeah, definitely. So that's why you shouldn't ask that question. To rephrase, I would rather say, so I suppose here the mistake that you made, and again, actually quite a few teachers in the group made the same mistake, is that again you're checking vocabulary, and what you needed to be doing was checking instructions. So you could say, I want the students to do a matching activity, matching pictures and words. So here you'd say, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to write or are you going to match? And then second question, what are you going to match? Words to words or words to pictures? And that would be a simple way of checking instructions. Okay, so that's something that might be on the exam, checking instructions. Let's see, question 6. This is quite a tough one for everyone, actually. Let's go back and see what question 6 was. So yeah, the collection of marks to fill up, here he is, the collection of marks to fill up records is given greater priority than the analysis of pupils. So this is all about how, well, the person who wrote this article, The Black Box, which I suggest you read again before the exam, I sent you guys the summary. He has quite a negative view of how exams are used and assessment is used in education. His idea is that in many places teachers just record results and just give tests because they have to, rather than to actually help students learn and to focus on what students need and where their strengths and weaknesses lie. So let's see how you did. So number 6, you got 2 out of 8. And I said this answer needed more in-depth analysis using concrete examples, more reasons for collecting marks, more specific reference to your own teaching practice. Let's see what you wrote. Most academic bodies are concerned with keeping records, definitely, to avoid unforeseen circumstances. I mean, definitely. So here, I think, because this question was worth 8 points, you could have explained a little bit more, like what kind of circumstances. Yeah, definitely, rather than keeping close attention with progress and development of learners. So you say, in my teaching, I do very much look into my learners' needs and targets and strive that their targets are met. So again, how do you do this? Remember, this question is worth 8 points, so it is quite short, and I need a bit more depth, more examples, more concrete examples. Also think about, the wider context, not just your lesson, but the college or the institution where you work, the government, the country. Why do we collect grades so much, and is it good or bad for education? So yeah, more examples and more depth with this answer. Okay, so number 7, let's see. Question number 7 was one that everyone found tricky for one simple thing. So it says here, briefly describe some marking that you've done recently and detail how you could get learners to mark it themselves effectively. So this whole question was about self-assessment. Not peer assessment, it's about self-assessment, because they're not marking each other's work, they are marking it themselves. And then think of 3 pedagogical reasons to give if challenged on this by a peer. So how did you do on here? You got 0 out of 7, Fombat. I'm so sorry, because your answers here, I think, were about peer assessment instead of self-assessment. Let's see. Yeah, so swap their sheets with their mates. And again, everything that you said here made really, really good sense, but it was all about peer assessment, so I was unable to give you points for that. Okay, and if you're going to reference here Vygotsky, you need to tell me a little bit how you're referencing him, in what way. So I mean, the zone of proximal development is something that you could mention here, but again, how would you mention it? How is it directly related? Okay, running out of time, so let's go on to number 8. You got 4 out of 4. Well done, perfect. And that was about making students, reducing anxiety for exams. So well done. You said everything that you said made perfect sense. So Fombat, for homework, I think read that article again, okay, and the black box article, and also think about gist tasks and detailed tasks, and that's in the email that I sent you guys. Look at that again and look at all those questions again, because some of those things will be on the final exam as well as the vocabulary. Okay, well done, Fombat, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, here are the action points that I put on your feedback, and that's it. So see you on Tuesday, and all the best. Bye.